A few years back when I first moved here to Cuenca, my wife and I had the wonderful experience of driving over to Guayaquil, except it wasn't so wonderful because there was a heavy fog that day. And being from Texas, we had never seen fog like you see when you drive through the Cajas some days. And so we made it safely, but it was a journey filled with fear and tension and stress. The fog there gets so thick and so white, you no longer can see the yellow line or the white line. You can't see anything. It just really is a scary thing. And for those of us who had just moved here to Cuenca back in those days, it was a real scary experience. But I came back and thought about it from a pastor's standpoint, and I wrote an essay about how that's kind of the way life is. We're kind of going onward through the fog, and it is kind of a dangerous and tension-filled and stress-filled existence that we live. But I needed an editor to make sure that I didn't make too many grammatical mistakes and make too many errors in the thing that I wrote, because I was going to be sending it to a publication there in the United States. So I asked another person that had moved here to Cuenca recently. Now this was 13 years ago. She had never gone through the chaos, through the Cajas, and she'd never seen the fog. So she read my essay, but she thought that I really did not know how to spell the word chaos. I had entitled it, "The Fog in the Cajas." But she changed it to "The Fog in the Chaos." The whole article was about going through chaos. Well, we got it straight eventually that it was the Cajas. But it is kind of like chaos. And that is the way humans live their life. We have a good life in many ways. We enjoy a lot of things. But the most important things are what we kind of forget about and don't pay a lot of attention to. And one of those is just how little we can really see what our life is all about, and what we can really see is the purpose of our life and the meaning of our life. Mainly, we're just going to, like when you're driving through the fog, it's one day at a time, 1 foot at a time. You're just trying not to go off the hill and down into the valley 10, 15,000 feet below, it seems like. Yeah, so this is the problem. The problem is that as human beings, we're like little kittens. We're born blind. Yeah, we just really can't see what reality is about, and we can't really see who we are, why we're here, and what we're supposed to be doing. It's a big problem for us. And so we spend most of our life living in this world where we just have to be very, very careful. And then, of course, that being the case, we still make big mistakes. And sometimes we do drive off of the road into the ditch. So we have to think about this problem we have of being born blind, and we have to understand that the gospel brings to us good news, that it doesn't have to be that way. We don't have to live our lives in blindness. We can actually find in our lives the ability to see things as they truly are. We can actually come to that point where we are able to see as we have never seen before that which is before us. And in order to experience that miracle in our life of being able to see things as they really are, not as we want to see them, or not as we think we see them, that causes us to be angry and full of desires for hurting and revenge against those who we think are mistreating us. In order to have that miracle, we need to understand why we are so blind. What is the problem? There's an old expression that is used as a toast. And as a little boy, growing up in West Texas, I think it was when I was about 4 years old or 5, At that time, we finally had a TV. It was the first time, I'm saying how old I am, but we had a TV. And on that TV, we could watch Westerns. And my favorite Western was to watch John Wayne. I love to sit and watch John Wayne's movies. I don't know how many times I watched them and saw them. I put on my little cowboy boots and I'd sit there and have my little hat on. And I'd try to act like I was John Wayne. And I was curious because John Wayne always went into a bar and he oftentimes had a drink in that bar. And I knew, I was a pretty smart 4-year-old, I knew he was drinking something he wasn't supposed to drink. Whiskey is what he was drinking. And I had figured out from hearing my father whisper one day to my mother that he was going to go take some medicine. And his medicine was whiskey. And he kept it under the kitchen sink and I was watching and I saw where that whiskey was. So I said to myself after they were gone for a little while, living in the house by myself, I thought to myself, well, I'm going to go be John Wayne today. I'm going to pour myself a little glass of that whiskey. And I did that. This small little glass, because always in the TV it was a little bitty small glass. So I did that. And I remember what John Wayne always said in the Western movie. And so I decided to say it before I drank the whiskey. He would say, here's mud in your eye. That's what he'd say, here's mud in your eye. And I'd say, here's mud in the eye. And then I took a full mouthful of that whiskey. And I'd like to die, I think. I was just lucky enough to get over it by the time my parents came home. Well, they thought I looked a little mellow that day. So anyway, here's mud in your eye. And you know, you look into those things and do the research, and you find out that in Texas in the 1800s and so forth, they didn't ever say mud in your eye in the saloons. That was something John Wayne did, but that was not how they toasted in those days. It wasn't until the 1930s that people began to say, here's mud in your eye. And so I said, well, where did that come from? Where did that idea come from? And I researched it, and I found out actually it comes from the 9th chapter of John. That's what some of the people in those days understood. That the problem was mud in the eye, and you needed to go to the pool of Siloam and wash that mud out. And so in their mind, those that like to drink, that's what you were doing. When you took a drink of whiskey, you were getting the spirit to wash the mud out of your eye. Well, that was their interpretation anyway. But the point is that the problem of our blindness is that there's too much of us in our eyes. We see everything from our perspective. We see everything from how we see it. And what else can we do? I mean, it's our eyes, so we see what we see and we think what we think, and that's the way it works. But our eyes can't see the truth about everything. We don't know the real intentions of other people. We don't know what really happened in this situation or that way. We just see what we think happened. And that's the same thing as being blind. And so we react to something that may or may not be true because there's too much of us in that vision that we have. We have a self-vision. And as long as we have a self-vision, we can't see what is really going on. Let me give you some examples of that just quickly. Life is filled with obstacles in our life. Life is filled with things that are problematic, things that are difficult, things that are fearful. And all the time we run into these, and our eyes see these things. And we see these things, and we think to ourselves, oh, this is difficult. This looks difficult. This looks like something that's a problem for me that I don't know what to do about. I need some special strength here. I can't do this. It's just too difficult. And we see all the difficulties as being bad. How blind are we? How blind are we? We try to run from our difficulties, hide from our difficulties, get away from our difficulties, pray to God we don't have any difficulties. But those difficulties are the secret to being strong. If you didn't have them, you would never be strong. If they never came into your life, you would never know what it means to work your way through something and come out a victor on the other side. So in our blindness, we see our difficulties as being things that we don't want to experience. And when we see them, we think to ourselves, why me? Why did this happen to me? You see, it's all looking at it from your own little selfish way. And then these problems that come our way, we don't want to have problems. We want everything to be convenient. We want everything to work exactly like it's supposed to work. We don't want to have these last-minute emergencies and things go wrong like we never thought they would go wrong. No, that's a problem, you see. And we see these problems as being unfortunate things. These things that are ruining our day, you see. And we're blind. We don't really see what the problems of life are. The problems of life are a way for us to gain more wisdom and gain more confidence. If we solve a problem, what do we get? We get more confidence and we get more wisdom. Without problems, we remain dumb and stupid. So we see things not as they are, but as we would wish they were. And then, of course, finally, the big one that comes to my mind is these fears we have. These fears of things that are going to happen to us. Oh, it might be bad. Oh, bad things could go this way, could go that way. Oh, I'm terrified as I think about it. And people look at the world today and they're filled with all kinds of fear. Oh, we could have this, and oh, this could happen, and oh, that could be bad. And oh my goodness, and we work ourselves into a tizzy of anxiety. We work ourselves into being just totally fearful of what tomorrow might bring. And so we really kind of want to stop our ears and close our eyes and not look at anything that is fearful. But what does fearful things do for us if we see them correctly? It's looking at our fears that causes us to have courage. It's the only choice we have, really, is to have courage. So again, the point I want to make very clearly is that we don't see the things in our life as we really should see them. The difficulties, the problems, the fears. And I could go on and on and on and on and on, but that's not the point. The point is to try to show how twisted our vision is, because we see it only in terms of what we think it might do to ourselves, and it's not really a thing to be afraid of. So how are we going to deal with it? What are we going to do? Well, what did Jesus tell the man who was born blind? What did he tell him to do? The first thing he did was he put this mud in his eyes as a symbol to us, as an allegory, as to say, here's the problem, my friend. You got mud in your eyes. And mud is what? We are made of mud, according to the Scriptures. We are made from the clay. We're made from the wet soil. That's who we are. And we just got too much of who we are in our eyes. We got too much of our flesh in our eyes. We only seem to see what this would do to us physically, what it would do to us mentally, emotionally. It's only about us and how it will affect us, and that is to put blinders on. So the first thing that Jesus makes sure that we want to be clear about is that our problem is we got mud in our eyes and we cannot see things as they truly are. So what are we going to do? We got to go to what he calls the Pool of Siloam, which was an actual real pool in Jerusalem. And the name of that pool, and it even tells us in the Scriptures, in case we did not know Hebrew, is that it meant the purpose pool. It was the purpose pool. It was the pool of those who are sent. If you are sent because you've got a purpose, you've got a goal, you've got an objective that you are supposed to fulfill. And if you would go and wash yourself in that purpose, if you would go and wash yourself in that which you were meant to be, if you would go and do that, then you could get some of that humanness out of your eyes. You could get some of that selfishness out of your eyes. And you could begin to live a selfless life, because that is the purpose for why you're here. But we don't ask that question very often. We don't ask that question of why we are here. When I was writing this sermon this week, a thought came to me, as it often does, many different thoughts about many different things. And I thought about a song I had not heard for a long time when I was a young boy back in the 1960s. And that song was called Mr. Custard. Anybody remember Mr. Custard? Probably you don't. But it was a song about great battle of Custer against the Indians in North Dakota. And of course, the entire 7th Cavalry of the U.S. Army was destroyed by the Indians that day. So it was a very fearful and horrible memory, but it was a very scary time for the soldiers who were marching toward this great battle, looking up in the hills and seeing Indians in the left and Indians on the right, Indians behind them and Indians in front of them. And so the chorus line of the song has this guy who sounds just really, really sad, and he cries out, "Oh Lord, what am I doing here? Oh Lord, what am I doing here?" Which is a way of saying, why am I here? And that song just came back to me, and it reminded me that this is the main question we really should be asking ourselves every day. Why am I here? Why am I here? And not just why am I here in a general sense, but why am I here in Cuenca? Why am I here in this city? Why am I here at this time and this place and this world being as it is? Why am I here? Was it just an accident? Did I just kind of stumble into it all? Or is there a greater purpose behind my presence here? Well, in the Christian faith, we proclaim that we have a greater purpose. And that greater purpose is to become those who live the selfless life as opposed to those who live the selfish life. Our whole purpose here is to give of ourselves to the community in which we live. It is to give of ourselves to others who have less than what we have. It is to give to others the spirit and the inspiration of thinking of others as more important than ourselves. Because that kind of spirit is what's going to turn this world into a place of peace and joy and love. It's not going to be any government program that does it. It's not going to be any politician we elect that does it. It's going to be when the human heart has changed from being self-centered to being other-centered. And that's our true purpose. That's why we're here. And so if we go and wash in that swimming pool, if we go there and say, let me immerse myself in the purpose of trying as best I can to live the selfless life, just like Jesus lived, just like God lives, then I will be able to see what things really are. The troubles of this life are really nothing more than an opportunity to be divine. That's what they are. And if we understand our true purpose here, we have a life really of peace and joy and love, and it's a great thing. So the idea then is that we want to imitate Jesus. And by imitating Jesus, I mean to understand why we were sent here. And understand that we were sent here to not be selfish and worry about all of ourselves and all that we're about, but instead to be those who are concerned about the needs and the way we can help and what we can do for others. Because let me tell you, when you finally realize that, you begin to see everything in this world totally different than the way you saw it before. All your troubles fade away. All your pain goes away. The rain ceases and the rainbow comes, and you can see clearly. Well, I don't want to go on about it today, but I would like to conclude with this one idea that comes to us from the song that we celebrated. I can see clearly now. There's a line in there that always bothered me for a long time. And by the way, I was in a rock band at that time. And I was in a rock band. And we played in Houston, Texas in 1972, and we were the front band for Johnny Nash. And you know who Johnny Nash was? He's the one that wrote this song. It was his only hit, but he had a great hit on this one. And he introduced it, calypso music to the United States. They'd never heard such a thing as that before. And we'd never heard that before. But anyway, what I want to say is there's a line in there. I didn't understand why he wrote it that way. He said, I can see all obstacles now. And I was like, wait a minute, why didn't he say, I can see all obstacles have gone away, or I can see that I have overcome all obstacles? But he says instead, part of seeing clearly is seeing all obstacles and not being afraid to look at them, not being afraid to be undone by them, but instead to see them as opportunities to find a bright, bright, sunshiny day. Amen. let's receive our benediction now. Lord, we're so thankful for this day and for all that has come our way. May we go forward into the world with the certainty that the light has shone in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Amen.